The morning sunlight filtered softly through the curtains of a small, cozy house nestled on Maple Street, casting a warm golden glow across the living room. Birds chirped cheerfully outside, their melodies weaving with the gentle rustling of leaves in the light breeze. Inside, the world was just beginning to wake up. Ethan, a bright-eyed toddler barely 2 years old, was already awake. Unlike most children who relied on the soft, sleepy calls of their parents to stir from dreams, Ethan had a curious nature that stirred him early. Today was no different. With his small hands clutching his favorite stuffed bear, he quietly wriggled out from under his blanket. His tousled hair caught the light as he rubbed his eyes and looked around the room, his tiny feet padding softly on the wooden floor. In the corner of the room, his mother, Sarah, was still asleep, her gentle breathing matching the calm rhythm of the morning. Not wanting to wake her just yet, Ethan quietly made his way to the back door, which his father had left slightly ajar the night before. The door led to the backyard, a world Ethan loved more than any toy inside. The backyard was still cool from the night, with dew glistening on the grass and the scent of fresh earth filling the air. Ethan's eyes sparkled as he stepped out, the warm morning sun kissing his cheeks. This little patch of earth was his playground, full of wonders to discover. There were tall trees to stand beneath, colorful flowers to smell, and tiny bugs to watch with wide-eyed fascination. Ethan toddled toward the garden's edge near the big oak tree. It was an ancient tree with sprawling branches and thick roots that twisted through the soil like sleeping giants. To Ethan, it was a magical fortress, a place where anything could happen. As he wandered closer, Ethan noticed something unusual just beneath the branches. At first, it looked like a shadow, but as he squinted in the soft sunlight, he realized it was the shape of a large animal, lying still on the ground. His tiny heart skipped a beat. Ethan crawled closer, his soft knees brushing against the grass, and then slowly stood up. The figure was a German shepherd, a beautiful dog, but something was wrong. Its fur was dirty and tangled, and one of its legs lay awkwardly twisted. The dog's eyes fluttered open weakly, and when they met Ethan's gaze, there was a flicker of pain, but also a gentle curiosity. The dog did not growl or snap. Instead, it let out a soft, pitiful whimper, barely audible over the morning chorus of birds. Ethan's face scrunched up with concern, and without hesitation, he reached out his tiny hand. His fingers trembled, but he pressed a small palm gently against the dog's warm head. In that moment, the dog seemed to relax just a little, leaning into the touch as if recognizing a friend. Ethan's innocent kindness created a bridge between them, a fragile connection made without words. He babbled softly to the dog, cooing comforting sounds as if telling it everything would be okay. Behind the house, Sarah had begun to stir. The quiet little sounds outside caught her attention, and she quickly got up, pulling on a sweater. Stepping into the backyard, she spotted Ethan standing near the tree, his hand resting on a large dog's head. A wave of emotion swept over her, relief that her son was safe, but worry etched deeply as she saw the dog's injured leg. Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. "Ethan, honey, come here." But Ethan didn't move. His eyes were locked on the dog, his small chest rising and falling as he watched, completely absorbed by the moment. Realizing something was wrong, Sarah hurried closer, her heart pounding. She knelt down next to Ethan, wrapping an arm around his tiny shoulders. "Mommy's here," she whispered softly. She glanced at the dog again and knew they had to act quickly. As she scooped Ethan into her arms, the dog let out a weak whine, its eyes watching them both with trust. Sarah dialed the number for the local animal rescue service, explaining the situation with urgency. Ethan, nestled in his mother's arms, looked back once more at the German shepherd. His expression was a mixture of wonder, worry, and a strange kind of hope, the kind that only a child's pure heart can hold. The quiet morning had changed. What started as a simple day in the backyard had turned into the beginning of a story that would touch many lives. A story of kindness, courage, and the unspoken bond between a baby and a wounded dog. The moment Sarah ended the call to animal rescue, a hush seemed to settle over the backyard. Ethan was still cradled in her arms, his tiny fingers gripping her shirt as he watched the German shepherd lying beneath the oak tree. The dog's breathing was shallow, each breath a quiet effort against the pain it carried. Sarah's mind raced. She knew they couldn't just leave the dog there, but with Ethan so small and fragile himself, she had to be careful. She gently set Ethan down on the soft grass, making sure he stayed close by her side. "Stay right here, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice steady but calm. Ethan looked up at her, his big eyes shining with trust, as if he understood her words, even if he couldn't speak them yet. Slowly, Sarah moved closer to the dog. Its fur was matted with dirt, and dried leaves stuck in patches. The wound on its leg was clear, swollen and bruised, with faint traces of blood staining the grass underneath. The dog flinched as she reached out, but Sarah's hands were steady and warm. She gently stroked the dog's head, trying to soothe it, her voice soft and reassuring. "Hey, buddy, we're going to get you some help," she murmured. Ethan shuffled closer again, curiosity overcoming his usual caution. His small hands reached out, fingers barely brushing the dog's fur. The dog lifted its head slightly, meeting Ethan's gaze with tired, grateful eyes. Despite the pain, there was something calm about the way the dog looked at him, a silent understanding that this little boy meant no harm. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to keep her composure. "Ethan, sweetheart, you're very brave," she said, kneeling beside him. "This dog is hurt, and we're going to make sure he's okay." Ethan nodded, though it was more a simple baby gesture than a full understanding of the situation. His attention was fixed on the dog, and for a moment, nothing else mattered. Minutes passed, feeling much longer to Sarah, as they waited for the rescue team. The dog lay quietly, its eyes occasionally fluttering closed as if fighting exhaustion. Ethan, sensing the dog's weariness, sat down and gently placed his hand on the animal's side. It was a small, tentative touch, but the dog responded with a low, soft whine, not of fear, but of comfort. Sarah watched this tender exchange, her heart swelling. It amazed her how a child so young could offer such pure kindness, instinctively reaching out to a creature in pain. It was a moment that words could never fully capture, the innocence of a baby meeting the vulnerability of an injured animal. Finally, the sound of tires on gravel broke the silence. Sarah stood quickly, gathering Ethan close as the animal rescue van pulled into the driveway. Two rescuers jumped out, carrying medical kits and stretchers, their faces serious but gentle. "Is this the dog you called about?" one of them asked as they approached. "Yes," Sarah replied, nodding toward the German shepherd. "He's hurt. Ethan found him like this." The rescuers moved carefully, their voices calm and soothing as they knelt beside the dog. They examined the leg, speaking softly to reassure both the animal and the family. One of them smiled at Ethan. "You did a very good thing, little man," staying calm and gentle. "This dog trusts you." Ethan giggled, a shy, happy sound, as the rescuers prepared the stretcher. The dog's eyes followed every movement, seeming to sense the care coming its way. With great care, they lifted the dog and began moving toward the van. Sarah hugged Ethan tightly. "Thank you for being so brave," she whispered. Ethan looked back at the dog one last time before the van drove away. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but something inside him told him this wasn't the end, that the dog needed him, and he would be there. As the vehicle disappeared down the street, Sarah felt a deep sense of hope. She knew this was the start of a journey, not just for the dog, but for their whole family. And through it all, Ethan's simple act of kindness had already begun to change lives. After the rescue team had carefully loaded the injured German shepherd into their van, the backyard felt suddenly empty and still. Ethan, still clutching his mother's hand, looked toward the driveway where the vehicle had just disappeared, his eyes wide with curiosity and a hint of worry. Though he was too young to understand the full gravity of what had just happened, there was something inside him that already knew this was the beginning of something important. Sarah knelt down beside her son, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "We did the right thing, Ethan," she said softly. "That dog is going to get help now." Her voice was calm, but inside she felt a mixture of relief and concern. Relief that Ethan was safe and concern for the wounded animal who had captured her son's heart in such a short time. Ethan looked up at his mother, then around the yard, his small fingers gripping her shirt. "Doggy?" he asked in his sweet, baby voice. "Yes, baby," Sarah smiled. "That doggy's going to get better. Someone's going to take care of him." The next few hours passed in a quiet blur. Ethan was distracted by his favorite toys and snacks, but his mind seemed to wander back to the dog beneath the old oak tree. Every now and then, he'd pause what he was doing and glance toward the window, as if trying to spot the dog's return. Sarah couldn't help but feel touched by the way her little boy's innocent kindness had brought this wounded animal into their lives. She knew she had to find out more about the dog's condition, so she called the Animal Rescue Center, hoping for good news. On the other end of the line, a kind voice answered. "Hello, this is Linda from the Animal Rescue. We got your message about the German Shepherd. We've given him some initial treatment, and he's stable now." Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Thank you. Is he going to be okay?" Linda replied gently, "It's too soon to say for sure, but he's a strong dog. We'll keep him comfortable and treat his leg. We'll also try to find out if he has an owner." Sarah shared the news with Ethan, who clapped his hands excitedly. "Doggy good," he exclaimed, the simple joy in his voice filling the room. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting soft pinks and purples across the sky, Ethan's family gathered in the living room. Sarah showed him pictures Linda had sent, photos of the German Shepherd lying on a soft blanket, eyes brightening as a caring hand stroked his head. Ethan's gaze was fixed on the screen, his tiny hands reaching out as if to touch the dog himself. "Doggy, smile," he said, pointing to the photo where the dog seemed to be resting peacefully. Sarah smiled warmly. "Yes, Ethan. That's Max. We're going to call him Max." From that day forward, the story of Ethan and Max began to grow. Sarah made plans to visit the Animal Rescue Center with Ethan as soon as the dog was well enough, wanting her son to meet the dog again and strengthen the bond that had formed between them. Meanwhile, Max was slowly healing. The vet's care, combined with the soft blankets and gentle voices of the rescue team, helped him regain strength day by day. And though he was still weak, there was a spark in his eyes that told everyone he hadn't given up hope. Back at home, Ethan's world had subtly shifted. His curiosity now included thoughts of his new friend. He babbled stories to his stuffed animals about the dog who needed help, and even tried to mimic the dog's gentle whine, causing his family to laugh and feel hopeful. Sarah watched all this with gratitude. She knew that this quiet connection between a tiny boy and a wounded dog was more than coincidence. It was a reminder of the simple power of kindness. In a world that could sometimes feel overwhelming, Ethan's innocent heart had made a difference. That night, as Ethan was tucked into bed, Sarah whispered a promise to herself that they would do everything they could to help Max recover and to welcome him into their family when the time was right. Ethan drifted to sleep with a soft smile, dreaming of a big dog with kind eyes and the warm feeling of friendship that nothing could break. The next morning dawned bright and clear, but the quiet of the early hour was filled with a different kind of anticipation. Sarah woke up early, her mind still filled with thoughts of Max, the wounded German Shepherd. She was eager to hear how he was doing and couldn't wait to take Ethan to visit him. The bond between the toddler and the dog was already special, and she knew this was only the beginning. Ethan was already awake, sitting by the window in his pajamas, clutching his stuffed bear tightly. His eyes were searching the backyard, hoping to see his new friend. "Doggy?" he asked softly, tilting his head. "Yes, Ethan," Sarah said with a warm smile. "We're going to see Max today." After breakfast, Sarah dressed Ethan carefully, making sure he was ready for the short trip to the Animal Rescue Center. She packed a small bag with his favorite snacks, a blanket, and a photo of Max to show the vet. Ethan babbled excitedly the entire time, clearly eager to visit the dog he had found. The drive to the rescue center wasn't long, but it gave Sarah time to explain gently to Ethan what was going to happen. "Max is still getting better," she said. "The doctors are helping him heal his legs so he can run and play again." Ethan nodded seriously, his small hands gripping the edge of his car seat. "Max, run," he exclaimed, eyes shining with hope. When they arrived, the rescue workers greeted them warmly. Linda, the volunteer who had spoken with Sarah the day before, smiled as she saw Ethan. "Hello, little hero," she said kindly. "Max has been asking about you." Ethan's face lit up as they were led to a quiet room where Max was resting. The dog lay on a thick blanket, his coat cleaner and smoother than before, but his legs still wrapped in bandages. Max lifted his head when he saw Ethan and let out a soft, happy whine. His eyes, once tired and dull, now glimmered with recognition and gratitude. Sarah knelt beside Ethan, who carefully reached out his tiny hand and touched Max's head. The dog leaned into the touch, wiggling slightly with joy. Ethan giggled, feeling the warmth of Max's fur against his fingers. The vet entered the room and smiled at the family. "Max is healing well," she said. "His leg is still tender, but the infection is gone, and he's starting to regain strength. With time, he should be able to walk without pain." Sarah's heart lifted with relief. "Thank you so much for taking care of him," she said sincerely. The vet nodded. "It's thanks to your family, especially Ethan, that Max had a chance. Finding him when you did made all the difference." Ethan beamed proudly, clearly understanding that he had helped in some important way. He leaned closer to Max, whispering little baby words, and the dog responded with soft, trusting eyes. As the visit came to an end, Sarah asked about what would happen next. The vet explained that Max would need continued care and rest at the rescue center for a while longer, but they hoped to find him a permanent home soon. Sarah exchanged looks with Ethan, her heart quietly making a decision. This dog, this brave German shepherd who had suffered but never lost hope, belonged with them. On the drive home, Ethan chattered happily about Max, telling his mother how much he wanted the dog to come home. Sarah smiled, thinking about how a simple act of curiosity and kindness had blossomed into something truly special. That evening, Sarah began researching what it would take to adopt Max. She talked to the rescue center about the process and made plans to prepare their home for the new family member. Meanwhile, Ethan's excitement grew, and every few minutes, he would look out the window and say, "Max, come home." At bedtime, Ethan hugged his stuffed bear close and whispered a little prayer for Max's healing. Sarah kissed him gently on the forehead and promised that soon their family would be complete with a new furry friend. Outside, the night sky twinkled with stars, as if shining just a little brighter for the boy and the dog whose story was still unfolding. It was a story of hope, courage, and the unbreakable bond that can grow between the smallest hearts and the bravest souls. The following days felt like a whirlwind of emotions for Sarah and Ethan. Every morning, Sarah would call the Animal Rescue Center, eager for updates on Max's condition. Each time she heard that Max was stable and showing signs of improvement, a wave of relief washed over her. But the real excitement came when the rescue center invited them to visit Max again. This visit was different. It felt like a celebration of progress. The rescue team had prepared a small, quiet room where Max could rest comfortably and meet his soon-to-be family. Sarah held Ethan's hand tightly as they walked through the center's doors, Ethan's little feet padding softly alongside his mother's. When they entered the room, Max was there, lying on a cozy blanket with a few toys scattered nearby. He looked stronger, his fur shining, his eyes brighter than ever before. As soon as Max saw Ethan, his tail gave a slow, hopeful wag, and he lifted his head eagerly. Ethan's face lit up with pure joy. "Max," he squealed, toddling forward as fast as his little legs would carry him. Sarah smiled, watching the bond between the two grow stronger with every passing second. She knelt beside Ethan and reached out to stroke Max's head, feeling the softness of his coat and the warmth of his body. The rescue team explained that Max had made incredible progress. The infection in his leg was gone, and while he was still weak, he was beginning to put weight on the injured limb. They shared plans for physical therapy and gentle exercise to help Max regain full strength. Ethan, fascinated, crouched beside Max and tried to mimic the dog's movements, crawling on the floor and stretching his arms and legs. Max responded with playful nudges, gently licking Ethan's cheek as if to say, "You're my best friend." The vet overseeing Max's care was full of praise. "Max is a brave dog," she said kindly. "It's clear he feels safe and loved, which makes all the difference in healing." Sarah felt a lump in her throat, overcome by the kindness surrounding them. She knew then, more than ever, that this dog belonged with her family. Max had already changed their lives, and she was ready to bring him home. As they prepared to leave, Ethan hugged Max gently. "Come home soon," he whispered, eyes shining with hope. Back at home, Sarah began organizing everything they would need for Max's arrival. She bought soft bedding, special food recommended by the vet, and even a few new toys, though she knew Max didn't need them to feel loved. Ethan, meanwhile, couldn't stop talking about Max. At daycare, he babbled about his big dog friend and how he wanted to play fetch and take long walks together. His teacher smiled, touched by the little boy's enthusiasm. Word of Max's story spread quickly through the neighborhood. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers reached out with offers to help, donating blankets, toys, and money for Max's treatment. The community had been moved by the tale of a toddler's kindness saving a dog's life, and now they wanted to be part of the healing journey. Sarah found herself overwhelmed with gratitude. The simple act of Ethan's curiosity had sparked something much bigger than she ever imagined. People began sharing their own stories of pets they had rescued, and the neighborhood seemed to grow closer, united by compassion. One afternoon, as Sarah sat with Ethan in the backyard, she watched her son carefully drawing pictures of Max with crayons. The dog's image was full of life, wagging tail, happy eyes, and a big smile. Ethan looked up at her and said, "Max happy. Max home." Sarah smiled, her heart full. "Yes, baby. Soon, Max will be home." That evening, Sarah called the rescue center to begin the adoption process. The vet reassured her that Max was ready for a loving home and that with patience and care, he would continue to thrive. The news filled Sarah and Ethan with joy and hope. Their family was about to grow, and the story that had begun on a quiet morning with a curious toddler was now becoming a beautiful reality. As Ethan drifted off to sleep that night, he dreamed of Max running through fields of green, free and happy. And somewhere, Max was dreaming too, of a family who loved him, a home filled with laughter, and a little boy who would save his life. The day finally arrived when Sarah and Ethan could bring Max home. The sun was shining brightly, casting soft rays through the window and warming the living room where Sarah prepared a cozy corner for Max. She laid out a thick, soft blanket and arranged a few toys nearby, hoping to make the dog feel safe and welcome in his new surroundings. Ethan buzzed with excitement, his small hands clapping together as he waited for Max's arrival. For days he had been talking about their new family member, counting down every minute until they would be reunited. Today was special, a fresh start, a new chapter filled with hope and love. When the rescue van pulled up in front of their house, Ethan ran to the door, his eyes wide with anticipation. Max stepped out carefully, still tender on his injured leg but steady. The dog's eyes met Ethan's instantly, and a quiet understanding passed between them, a bond deeper than words. Sarah gently helped Max inside, keeping a watchful eye on his movements. Ethan followed closely, crawling around to be at eye level with the dog, softly talking and offering gentle pats. "Max, you're home now," he whispered, as if it were the most important message in the world. The adjustment wasn't easy. Max was cautious and tired, still learning to trust his new environment. But Ethan's presence was a soothing balm. The little boy's innocence and warmth seemed to ease the dog's fears. Whenever Max flinched or hesitated, Ethan was there, a small hand resting reassuringly on the dog's side. Sarah took time off work to care for Max and keep an eye on its healing. She followed the vet's instructions carefully, administering medicine and helping Max with gentle stretches to regain strength. Each day brought small victories: a longer walk, a wag of the tail, a playful bark. The neighbors watched with admiration as the family settled into their new routine. Ethan and Max became inseparable, the toddler leading their daily walks with a determination that surprised everyone and Max matching his pace with patient steps, always keeping a protective eye on his little friend. One afternoon, while Sarah was in the kitchen preparing a meal, she heard a soft thud followed by a giggle. She turned to see Ethan and Max playing together in the living room. Ethan had a plush ball in his hand, which Max eagerly chased. The dog's tail wagged furiously, and Ethan's laughter filled the room. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. The transformation was incredible. From a frightened, injured stray to a joyful companion, Max was healing not just physically but emotionally, and Ethan, in his innocent way, had been the catalyst. As days turned into weeks, Max grew stronger. The limp in his leg faded, replaced by a steady, confident stride. Ethan, too, blossomed in ways Sarah hadn't expected. He became more aware, more empathetic, learning lessons about kindness and patience that only such a close bond could teach. One evening, after a long day of play, Ethan sat quietly beside Max, stroking the dog's head as he drifted to sleep. Sarah watched from the doorway, feeling a deep sense of peace. "This is what family looks like," she whispered to herself. The story of Ethan and Max became a source of inspiration for many. Friends and neighbors marveled at how a simple act of curiosity had led to a life-changing friendship. Sarah often shared their journey, hoping to remind others that sometimes the smallest gestures could create the greatest impact. For Ethan, Max was more than just a pet. He was a protector, a friend, and a reminder that kindness could heal wounds, visible and invisible alike. And for Max, Ethan was the miracle he never expected, a baby who reached out with an open heart and changed everything. Together, they embarked on a new journey, one filled with love, laughter, and the promise of many adventures yet to come. As the weeks passed, the bond between Ethan and Max grew stronger with every shared moment. Max was no longer just the timid dog who had been rescued. He had become Ethan's protector, companion, and best friend. Together, they explored the backyard, took slow walks through the neighborhood, and shared quiet afternoons filled with warmth and trust. Sarah often marveled at how much the two seemed to understand each other. Ethan, still a toddler, expressed his affection in simple but meaningful ways. Soft touches, giggles, and the way he carefully handed Max his favorite toy. Max responded with gentle nudges, protective nudges whenever Ethan wandered too far, and an ever-watchful eye. But the healing was not just physical. Both Max and Ethan had wounds that needed time to mend. Max's past was a mystery, the cause of his injury unknown, but the fear and pain in his eyes gradually gave way to trust. And Ethan, too, was learning about the power of compassion and the strength found in quiet moments of connection. One afternoon, as Sarah watched Ethan and Max play under the shade of the oak tree, the very same spot where Ethan had found Max, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. The journey had been challenging, but this moment was perfect. Ethan, with his sun-kissed curls and joyful smile, and Max, with his sleek coat and gentle eyes, seemed to belong to each other in a way that was undeniable. That day, Ethan reached out to Max, wrapping his tiny arms around the dog's neck in a heartfelt hug. Max leaned into the embrace, closing his eyes and resting his head gently against Ethan's cheek. It was a picture of pure love and healing, a reminder that sometimes the deepest wounds could be soothed by the simplest acts. Sarah wiped away a tear as she called Ethan inside for dinner. "Time to eat, little man," she said softly. Ethan looked up, then back at Max. "Doggy stay?" he asked, his voice full of hope. Max gave a soft bark as if answering, "I'm always here." That night, Sarah tucked Ethan into bed and sat beside him, thinking about how far they had all come. She realized that Max's arrival had brought a new light into their lives, one that illuminated the power of kindness, resilience, and love. The days continued with their gentle rhythm. Ethan grew more confident, exploring his world with the steady companionship of Max by his side. Max, once wounded and scared, thrived in the safety of their home, his spirit healing alongside his body. One evening, Sarah received a message from the rescue center. They wanted to share Max's story with others, to inspire hope and encourage kindness. Sarah agreed, knowing that their journey could touch many hearts. As she read through the story prepared by the rescue team, Sarah smiled. It captured everything she felt: the courage of a baby, the resilience of a dog, and the unbreakable bond they had formed. Later that night, as Ethan slept peacefully, Sarah whispered a quiet prayer of thanks for the miracle of Max's survival, for her son's gentle heart, and for the unexpected ways life could bring healing when hope seemed fragile. And somewhere nearby, Max rested too, dreaming of open fields, loving hands, and the promise of a lifetime filled with care. Together, they had found not only rescue but a true home, a place where hearts healed and love never ended. The days that followed felt like a beautiful dream come true for Sarah, Ethan, and Max. What had started as a chance encounter in the backyard had blossomed into something deeper, a family bound not by blood, but by love and trust. Max, now fully healed and strong, had settled comfortably into his new home. His once wounded leg no longer slowed him down. He ran and played with the energy of a dog who had been given a second chance at life. Yet it was the quiet moments that meant the most, the times when Max would curl up beside Ethan, resting his head gently on the boy's lap, or when the two would watch the sunset together from the porch swing. Sarah watched these moments with a heart full of gratitude. She had seen firsthand how compassion and courage could change lives, and she knew their story was far from over. It was a story of hope that would continue to inspire those around them. One Saturday morning, the family decided to celebrate Max's recovery with a small gathering. Friends, neighbors, and volunteers from the rescue center came together in their backyard, sharing laughter, stories, and a deep appreciation for the journey that had brought them all together. Ethan, wearing his favorite shirt with a paw print on the front, beamed as he showed off Max's favorite tricks. Max, ever the gentle giant, wagged his tail proudly, basking in the warmth of his new community. Sarah took a moment to reflect on how far they had come. The dog who had once been lost and injured was now the heart of their home. The little boy who had bravely reached out to him had sparked a chain of kindness that touched many lives. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the gathering, Sarah knelt beside Ethan and Max. She wrapped an arm around her son and gently stroked Max's fur. "Thank you for being brave, Ethan," she whispered. "You saved Max's life, and he saved yours in so many ways." Ethan smiled shyly, looking up at his mother and then at Max. "I love Max," he said simply. "He's my best friend." Max responded with a soft lick on Ethan's cheek, sealing their unbreakable bond. That night, as the house grew quiet, Sarah sat by the window, watching the stars twinkle in the sky. She thought about the lessons they had learned, about hope, healing, and the power of small acts of kindness. In the days to come, Max continued to grow in confidence and joy. He became a beloved part of the neighborhood, known for his gentle nature and protective spirit. Ethan thrived with Max by his side, learning about empathy and friendship in the most beautiful way. Their story spread beyond their little community, inspiring others to open their hearts and homes to animals in need. And through it all, Sarah knew one thing for certain: sometimes the smallest hands can make the biggest difference. Years later, when Ethan looked back on that unforgettable day, he wouldn't just remember finding Max beneath the oak tree. He would remember the love they shared, the courage it took to help a friend in need, and the forever family they had become. Because in the end, it wasn't just a story about a baby and a wounded dog. It was a story about hope restored, lives changed, and the unbreakable bond that turned strangers into family.